Hey, what's up, guys? It's Confessions of a Doctorholic with Hafsa Slavin, and I'm so excited today because I have heard from a little birdie that someone scored the highest score in first year of our medical school. So I've got David on the line.
It's not entirely accurate, but it's not far from the truth. I'll just say that.
Oh, come on, give me the juice.
I'm not at liberty to say my actual score.
I'm actually going to grill you about your techniques to study.
My techniques feels like a test.
No, don't stress.
Can I call a friend? Do I have like a lifeline here?
So you've got call a friend, you've got the 50-50 option.
Okay, fine. And $1 million at the end of it.
I wish, man. Maybe one day.
Maybe.
Okay, so here's the thing that baffles me the most, right?
Yeah.
You've got like the cutest child in the world. So I don't know how anyone studies. I wouldn't study at all. I'd just be like playing around with my kid if I had a kid, you know?
He is the cutest thing in the world. That's an accurate statement. Yeah, but he doesn't make it easy, let me tell you. It doesn't make it easy. But that was my problem mainly the second year. The first year I had a different issue. I don't know if you know, but the first year my wife and son didn't join me. My son was only born after, you remember our OSCE?
Yeah, so it would have been June of our first year.
Yeah, but he was born after the formative. So he was born in December. And my wife was still in Israel. So I used to commute back and forth every week the whole first year.
Oh, yeah, I do actually remember that. Okay, that's
so that posed a different, that's like a completely different issue. It doesn't make it much easier, to be honest. And then second year they joined me, and that I didn't have to fly, but then I had a little cute guy, and I had my wife, for better and for worse. Maybe for better, but yeah.
Okay, I want to start right from the beginning. Okay, so
all right.
How did you study?
Oh, I wish there was a secret sauce. There is no secret sauce, and I mean a lot of it is luck. Thank goodness. There is an element of luck, and that's not something you can practice. But besides luck, there are two other components which I think that you could say that you could work on. There's obviously knowledge. You could work on knowledge.
Uh-huh.
And then a big aspect, especially in medical school tests, is test technique.
Yeah.
So disclosure, first test in CS year, and we had the two. So the first one, I got a good grade. I could have done much better. And I attributed it to lack of test technique. So a lot of the remainder of the time between the first and second test, I dedicated to just doing questions. Even if I didn't know it, even if it wasn't on our level, I just went over test questions to practice how to answer test questions.
Okay.
And that, I could say, it really does help, just knowing how to answer questions. It's underrated of how much it actually helps, in my eyes.
Okay. So, when you talk about technique, are you talking about speed, or are you talking about identifying the key word and then understanding how to answer that question?
It's both, and there's another element of psyche, meaning you have to be confident in the knowledge that you have, and don't question yourself, and don't question what you think you may know, and don't think that everyone's trying to trick you and the whole world is against you, and understand that this is a test and it has a straightforward answer. You just have to know it.
But conspiracy theories are great.
Yeah, I know, right? Medical school is meant to make you fail. I don't think it's meant to make you fail. Unfortunately, no one wants you to ace their tests, but I don't think anyone's out there to make you fail. And in our school, I mean, the questions are relatively straightforward.
Yeah.
If you know it, and they give you questions which you'll never know, which is annoying, right? You're always baffled by a handful of questions on the test where you have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
In such a situation, sometimes test technique does come in handy, to be honest, because if you look at all the answers, then you'll recognize a few.
Yeah.
Meaning, even if you don't know anything, you'll likely recognize a few.
So you can cross out what.
Right. So you can cross out and you narrow it down, and then you have to be confident. Meaning, even if, let's say it's a question that you do know. I can give you an example. We're studying now for the USMLE, so they have all kinds of these tricky questions, and sometimes they are a bit out to get you, but you have to be confident in what you know. I'm trying to think of an example, but irrespective, if you narrow it down with your technique, you narrow it down to two different answers. And there's one answer you know is true, but then you think to yourself, you know what, maybe they're really trying to trick me and it's not what I obviously know is true. And then obviously it's what you know.
Yeah.
Right, so you have to be confident and know that's the real answer. There's no reason to think otherwise besides your psyche trying to trick you and thinking that everyone's out to get you.
Fair, that's great advice. Okay, Now let's go to the knowledge part. So like
Oh
I've
boy.
noticed personally that I'm one of those people, to be honest. I go over the information once, and to be honest, I rely a little bit too much on my memory. I'm just like, I should have 40 gigabytes of information in my brain. Insert knowledge there. But like, to be completely honest, I've learned throughout this medical degree that I should never rely on my memory. That like I definitely need to repeat the information, because sometimes it gets confusing, sometimes it gets muddled up, and there's so many things that can happen. So do you do like spaced repetition? You know, so many people talk about that technique, flashcards, like what do you do?
A little bit of both. I write my own flashcards in the first year. Okay. And then second year I actually did use real other flashcards, like the Anki app, which I'm sure you're familiar with. You can also use it on your desktop. So I use that for second year, actually. And that's really the spaced repetition kind of thing. In my eyes, you don't learn from that. That's not to learn, that's to remember.
That's true.
Because it forces you to memorize even if you don't want to memorize. Meaning it's by doing those flashcards with spaced repetition, you memorize without trying to memorize. And you don't really like notice it until you come up to like a flashcard and you start completing the sentence without even knowing what they're talking about.
Yeah, it gets a little bit romantic sometimes.
It gets annoying a bit because it's time consuming, right?
But what about your very first time? Like, how do you ensure that the knowledge is like there?
Right. So first of all, I'm more of a visual learner. So I draw and I look at pictures. It helps me much more than just to read it. Okay. Many times a picture really is worth 1,000 words. Instead of reading a paragraph, I could look at a picture and that will explain it to me more or less. I'll still go over the chapter, but probably after I look at the picture, so I get a little grasp of what I'm learning. But for me, the big deal comes down to understanding. Okay. And not necessarily trying to memorize. There are things you're going to have to memorize, and you can't avoid it. But for the most part, if you understand, you'll know more or less a majority of what you have to remember. Because physiology is physiology and it makes sense. You have to understand basic fundamentals, which if you understand them on a good enough level, you'll have a lot of your answers. Histology, no one's going to ever know. There's no sense in histology. I can't ever make sense of histology and pathology. And so that's like annoying. You have to memorize it. But a lot of it does come down to understanding in my eyes.
That makes sense.
Oh, there was one point I forgot to add about the knowledge part. Persistent is key. You have to be persistent. You have to do it. You can't like sit down and build a schedule and say, okay, great, I built a schedule. I'm going to start in a month from now. Everything can be nice and rosy. You have to be persistent. You have to be on top of yourself. You have to keep on doing it, because otherwise you spend most of the time just remembering what you learned the previous time. But if you're persistent and if you keep on doing it, then you just build memory on top of memory and skill on top of skill, instead of spending time trying to recall what you learned already. So being persistent really is key.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you were doing the USMLE. So one thing about the USMLE that I've noticed is that you have to be very positive, because sometimes like it knocks you down. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt. Sometimes you get shitty scores and then you're like, oh my God, like what am I doing with my life? So how do you maintain that positivity?
I mean, there are definitely ups and downs, I'll be honest. Definitely some ups and downs, especially after you have like a good streak of high scores and then suddenly you get like such a bad score and you just don't know where it came from. Yeah. But you have to remember it's a matter of statistics, meaning first of all, you getting bad scores in whatever U-World simulation or whatever doesn't mean necessarily that you'll get a bad score in the USMLE itself. It's a learning process. You getting a 70% passing score on USMLE on U-World questions, let's say even a day before the test, doesn't mean that when you get to the test itself, you'll still get that 70. You're likely to get higher. You can also obviously get lower, but you have to understand that it doesn't mean that that's what you're going to get. You just have to use it as a learning tool, and that's it. It's not necessarily a testing tool at all times. It's at least for the first half of it. That's my opinion, at least. Yeah. Meaning, especially for the beginning, you have to get used to the questions. There are things you don't know. There are things that aren't in any of the resources that we learned. That's true. You can do boards, pathoma, first aid, everything sketchy, and you get to a question, that bacteria does not exist. There's no way that there's such a bacteria. There are those things you're not going to know, and you're not the only one. Okay, if you don't know it, it's unlikely that everyone knows it and you don't. But you have to remember that.
That's solid advice. And now the biggest question of all.
Oh boy.
You used to fly over the weekends. I mean, the biggest problem that any medical student has, to be completely honest, is time. So how did you deal with time?
Well, 25 hours a day is already too little.
minus sleeping, you know, and like some of us.
Yeah, who needs
sleep.
sleep is for the weak? Who said that? Who needs sleep? Yeah, but I'll be honest, having a family in this aspect it helps, and it's sort of a driver because you know that your time is divided into two. Okay. You have study time and you have family time.
Okay.
And whatever you take away from study time, it won't replace family time. Family time stays constant, right? So you have to focus all the time that you have for study time. You have to dedicate it for study time because it will dissipate and go away and it won't ever come back. So, for example, and don't freak out when I tell you, but I'm completely serious. During the first year, I used to stay up till roughly 1, 2 a.m. every night.
Okay.
From Sunday to Thursday. I'm not recommending this. You know, that's the way I learned better. I am a night owl, so I didn't mind studying at night. It's not for everyone. I'm not going to tell everyone to go and study till late at night.
Yeah, because I'm the complete opposite. Like, tell me to wake up at 4 a.m. I'm more happy to do that. And start
it's the
early
same
in the morning. But like at night, oh my Lord. Like my brain is like, I'm on holiday right now. Leave me alone.
So that's my 4 a.m. brain. I mean, I won't remember what you told me at 4 a.m.
Fair.
But at 2 a.m., I'll probably remember it. I did that for one basic reason. I did it because I knew that once I get home, I'm not studying anymore. So from Thursday night or Friday morning, whenever I made it home, there's no studying. You're dedicating the weekend to your family. So I knew that I don't have a full week of studying. I don't have 7 days. I have 4.5 or 5, depending on when I arrived. And eventually, I managed to study also during my commute. So I always used to carry a little Harrison's on me. I used to have a tablet. I used to put my lectures or whatever. And any time I had available to me, whether it's on a flight or in the cab right there, I used to try and open my book and read as much as I can or learn or watch videos or whatever it was. Okay. So I really tried to maximize my study time until I got home. Fair, huh?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, after first year, I was very happy I didn't have to commute again. But then, you know, you have the second obstacle, right? Your family time is right there. You don't have those 5 straight days of study, which you could do as much as you want, right? You have to then get used to maybe more days, but it's less of a sequence. It's less of day after day. Yeah. It's more, okay, I got to find an hour. I have to build myself a little schedule and balance it out. And here, as messy as it is, right? You're everywhere all the time and you don't really know what's happening when, and you have these like weird 1-hour breaks which help nobody, but you find actually a lot of time in the hospital, in the waiting rooms or whatever. So you always carry some reading material on you and don't be shy to open it and look nerdy. Nerdy is the new cool, I'm telling you. Put that on a t-shirt. I got the dad jokes, don't worry about it.
So in second year, when were you studying?
The first round I had was GP, which is basically a lot of free time, and sometimes you went to clinic, right? That was kind of the GP round. So that was nice because it takes me a bit time to, get started, to rev it up a bit. So that was a nice, easier way into it. And then I knew I had a time when I came home. Mm-hmm. And until that time, doesn't matter where I was, irrespective of where I was, I studied. Whether it was in med school, whether I was in clinic, it doesn't make a difference if I was traveling to and from. So I had a set schedule more or less. Okay. And then at night, depending on what I had during, closer to test time, it gets a bit more intense because after the house goes to sleep, and I sat down and studied if I had some free time. Usually I did closer to the later hours, let's say 11, 12. I had that 1 hour, 2 hours to study even after I came home. Yeah. So my day wasn't over when I came home necessarily.
That's wild. So did little Aiton, did he know I can't bug dad too much? Dad's
no. Quite the contrary. Every time I told him to please just give me this 1 minute, he came tugging on you. And he wasn't interested in you being interested in anything but him.
That's so cute.
Oh my God.
Did you ever practice clinical skills on him or not really?
I wish. No, he's scared of a stethoscope.
Oh, what?
If I touch him with the stethoscope, he'll cry and push it away, and he won't let me get close to him with the stethoscope. And he used to love pediatricians also, and then mid-year it switched.
Did he get a vaccine? Because I've heard usually kids
You heard that. Good for you. I don't know if he got a vaccine there or not, but every once in a while he gets some fever and cough and whatever. You want to make sure everything's, you need some antibiotics. Yeah, you say, but let's see you. I'll call you next time when he wakes up with a 3 o'clock sputum culture, okay?
Full disclosure, I love kids.
Yeah, but you're not going to be a pediatrician.
Until they poop. When they poop, I'm just you can go back to your mom and dad.
So basically you like them half the time? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Oh, that's cruel.
Listen,
I don't think anyone enjoys it.
I know, but like it's kind of one of those things that's like, you know, when a child stays up late or they poop, it's like, this is mum and dad's problem. Like they brought you to this world. You're great. It's a privilege to know you, but like this is not my problem right now.